this discussion is going to be about a cloud journey and how do you sell it, right? So we've seen all these really cool slides on how to build these great deployment pipelines and all the DevOps stuff. But if you don't sell your cloud journey well, if you don't have your finance department completely on board with you, all that really cool, sexy stuff you built, they're going to make you go back on-prem. So we're going to talk about the journey we did, how we sold it, and just kind of give you some ideas on that. First off, my name is Brian Hostetter. I am the Director of Architecture for DHI Group. We run 3 different job boards. Dice.com is the most well-known one. We have another one for security cleared jobs called Clearance Jobs. We have another one for finance jobs that is, it's called eFinancial Careers. It's mostly based in APAC and Europe. So we don't do too much in the US. We're located out on Meredith, right by that big blue tube thing, whatever it is, right out there on the other side of the interstate. So we've been in the Des Moines area since the mid-90s. The founders of the company were, they were native from Des Moines. They started the company in San Francisco and then realized when they took it from a bulletin board to a website, they didn't need to be in San Francisco anymore, so they moved back home. And I will apologize, my allergies are going nuts, so if I lean over and start coughing, I apologize for that. Just a couple disclaimers. These are general guidelines. This isn't going to fit every business. If you're an insurance company, you just take all the numbers we're going to talk about and multiply them by like 10 or 100. If you're a small startup, I hope you're in AWS already. If you're not, divide everything by 10. So, and I am going to talk specifically about AWS because that's what I know. There's so much parity in cloud providers anymore that all these things will translate to Azure or Google. That's all I can really say. The other ones, nobody else even uses those. So we're going to specifically talk about AWS, and I apologize if you're using Azure. I have never used it, so I don't have a lot of experience with it. I'm not going to use velocity as in my cost metrics. And we all know that that's the most important thing to technologists, is velocity. But you should have sold velocity to your development team, and you should have sold velocity to your CTO. But you can't sell velocity to your CFO. They don't care. I mean, they care, but they don't care. So they want to talk hard numbers. They want to talk about, is this going to be better or worse than what we've currently got? And velocity is important, but it's only important to technology and probably product. It's going to be infrastructure heavy. So I'm not a developer. My background is operations. I've been doing operations for 20-something years at Dice. So that's what I know. That was the project I was involved with. We did this as an ops project first. It's a dev project, and they were completely on board. That was the easiest sell I've ever had in my career, saying, hey, I want to go all cloud. They're like, yeah, let's go. It was harder to sell to the operations staff. Since we changed times around, we'll try to wrap this up around 3, and then we'll do open spaces and the bench discussion early and more time for it too. So I'm going to hang out at the open spaces. I saw one of the posted notes on infrastructure and cloud infrastructure, and that's my thing. So I'll go hang out over there. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. I'll probably stay as long as you want because I love it. So let's talk a little bit about us, our journey, our story. We were downtown for years. We moved out west in 2001, built a brand new building, brand new data center, all new equipment, and we ran there for 10 years, just kept every 3 years refreshing the hardware. And in 2001, when we did it, you couldn't go and get colo space. You built your own data center. And it was horrible and time consuming, and we had whole bunches of staff we had to deal with. I mean, my degree is computer science. Don't ask me about electrical and don't ask me about HVAC because I don't understand that. I do, but you don't want me touching it because I'll break everything. So we had that building. Everything was growing great. The thing that always terrified me is, if you're from the Midwest, in June, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you look west and the the sky's a little darker than that green, but it's still green. And I always thought, oh man, that day is going to come where the tornado is going to hit our building, rip the top off the building, and it's raining in the data center. So those things, I mean, that was my biggest fear. This is before I had kids, so I've got lots more fears now. But that was always my biggest fear, is that we're going to have rain in the data center. And what do I do then? So in 2011, we're going to build a new building. And I said, let's not do a data center, because now there's these things called colos, and I can go and rent space, and they take care of power, which I hate. They take care of cooling, which I hate. And they just send me a bill every month, but they've got nice, big, thick concrete walls and the right roof, and it's not drywall, and they've done everything right. So let's go do that. Easy sell. So we built a brand new data center in a colo, all new equipment. We went 10 gig switching then, just top of the line everything. It was great. If you're a hardware geek and you get a chance to do that project, it is fun, because you're unboxing and you've got stacks of servers, and it's like Legos, right? You get to do it's all open, and you get to do everything brand new. So it's really cool. You can screw all your wiring up right there for the first day instead of waiting 6 months to do it. So we did that. We moved into a colo. We put our secondary site, because you have to have 2 sites, right? I can't, when the tornado comes and knocks the roof off the building and rains inside of it, I can't tell my CEO, well, sorry, but everything we do, we're a website. I can't, oh, sorry, it rained in the data center and all the data's gone, and sorry, the business is gone. So that's not acceptable. So we have to have 2. So we did that. Everything was fine. We ran that way for years. In 2013, we bought a small startup, and they were called Work Digital. And they were a London-based group, 10 people. And then what they were doing is they were going out and scraping profiles of people from the web and building a profile on them and saying, if you know Perl, because you've contributed to this GitHub project, we think you have these skills. So we're building kind of a profile of you. And so we were talking to them about, purchasing this company and doing the due diligence. And I started thinking about, that's a big data set. That's a way bigger data set than I have in my data center. Didn't really think much of it. I'm like, they must have a huge data center to be able to do this. That's impressive to me. So we ended up purchasing this company, and I go back to London to do the integration. So now we have to come up and say, okay, how are we going to integrate this company into ours? And we had a security director at the time. And who's read the Phoenix Project? I hope everybody's read, right? John, that guy with the 3-ring binder. This was our security. I mean, he was dead, that guy. And he handed me a 3-ring binder. It was huge. And he said, take this to London with you. Thanks. And fill out all these papers. And it wasn't triplicate like a government form, but man, it was bad. I was like, really? Just send me a PDF and I'll fill it out. Fill out all these papers on all of their hardware, because I need the serial numbers. I need exactly the patch levels of everything. I need all of everything. And I thought, oh man, I've got a week trip. This might take 2 just to go and inventory all this. And so we go and we did the first couple of days, and then I said, all right, I need to get this started or I'm never going to leave. So I sat down with the owner and I said, I need to inventory all of your technology. And he said, we're a 10-person startup. So the whole company was in the room. And he goes, okay, we have 11 MacBooks, and we have an airport because we're all Mac, and we have a printer over there. You can see the printer. And I'm kind of like laughing. I'm like, no, I don't care about your end user stuff. I need to know the routers, switches, servers, all that stuff. I know you've got a lot because you've got hundreds of terabytes of data. And he laughed at me, and I'm sure there was some stupid American discussion in there. And he said, let me show you something. So he sat down, and he pulled up his AWS account. He said, that's my servers. Sorry. So he showed us this AWS account. He said, this is everything. This is how we're doing it. And then there was only like 12 servers running in there. How are you processing hundreds of terabytes of data on 12 little servers? Because they were small. Like, how are you doing that? And Probably another stupid American comment. And he said, look, I've got this other one here, and it's a i4 816XL. At the time, that was the biggest server that Amazon made. I mean, it probably still is. It was huge, like 128 cores and a terabyte of memory. And he said, I run this. And I'm thinking, well, what would that cost me to buy? That's a $75,000 server to buy that. So he's like, well, when I need to rebuild my solar collection, because I add a new facet, I do something physically changes it, and I need to load in all these profiles again. I turn that thing on, and I start it up in the afternoon, and we get the thing running, we make sure everything's running, we go home. When we come in the next morning, check it, it's like 80 or 90% done. Wait till it finishes, shut it off. I'm like, oh, okay, I like that. I'm like, how much does this thing cost? And he's like, well, we looked it up and it was $6 an hour, which is a really expensive server in Amazon. He goes, but I run it for 12 hours, like once a month or every other month. I'm like, wait a second, so to redo your entire solar infrastructure, to rebuild the whole collection, it costs you $80? He's like, yeah, it cost me $80. This is awesome for me being the financial person. I love this. We need to start doing some more of this. We bought the business. Everything ran. We built a VPC over to them, and off we go. The next year, we were in London again, and we were buying another company because we were growing by acquisition at this point. And we were buying another company. And this was a traditional company. They had hardware. But we didn't buy the whole company. We bought a division of the company. And what they told me was, well, in the contracts that all the legal people, they didn't talk to anybody in technology. Well, all the contracts say that we have 4 months to move all of the assets to a hosting, to somewhere else. I'm like, oh boy. Okay, well, let's get an inventory and start building that project. And about a month into it, our plan was, okay, well, I've got a data center and I've got spare capacity. I'll just migrate all this stuff over here. And then GDPR came along. And our legal team said, hey, what are you doing? You can't move that data to the US. It has to stay in Europe. It can never come here. I'm like, I've got 4 months to move the data center, and now you're telling me that one I was going to move it to can't. I don't think I can procure equipment and find, I don't have any relationships with any vendors over there. I don't think I can find a place to host this in 4 months and get it moved. But what about this AWS thing? So we went and talked to the Work Digital guys. I'm like, hey, you did this project. Well, they didn't really do the project because they started there. But what do you think? Could you help me scope this out? What would it take to move? I went to my legal team. I said, hey, well, if I keep it in Europe and I move it to the cloud, can I do that? He's like, I don't really care what you do with it as long as it stays in Europe. Okay, let's do that. So that was our first real project where we were going to, move resources from an on-prem data center to AWS. And we started fiddling around with infrastructure as code, and we kind of did it. And it wasn't perfect, and we had some snowflakes here and there, and we marked them as snowflakes, and we were kind of doing it. And we got it migrated. We all flew to London, sat down, and migrated a website from Colo to the cloud, and flew a quarter way around the world to do it. That made no sense, but it's easier when everybody's in a room. So we started doing this cloud journey, but then 2014 rolls around, and I put a huge budget line in, like I do every 3 years. I CapEx millions of dollars to buy servers and hardware and all that stuff that I need to do to run Dice. And we really just planned on upgrading everything. We actually had talked to our colo provider and said, can I have the next 10 racks in the next row? And I'll build all brand new there, and we'll just run a cable across the top with 10 gig, and we'll then copy data, and off we go. And with all brand new equipment, and we can chipper shredder this old stuff, and we'll recycle it, and we're done. And it just kept bothering me. We were, at the same time, our development teams were going agile. So they were constantly pushing, we need things faster. I need environments faster. And I'm on-prem, and I'm like, I can't. Okay, so we'll do this. We're going to create a DevOps team, because that's what the first thing everybody does. Like, we'll create the DevOps team, and they'll do that for you. They'll be faster. And what we found was the DevOps team then was doing everything, The ops team had no idea what the DevOps team was doing, and became this big friction there between the DevOps group, which I ran, and the ops team. They were like, we don't know any of this stuff you're doing. The development teams were kept pushing further and further. They're like, we want to go no ops. We want to build and run our own stack and maintain the whole thing, and we don't want you involved because you're too slow. And I'm like, guys, see that huge room over there? Do you want to own that? Or do you want us to own that and then you just get to do all the fun stuff? And then we really started looking, saying, hey, we need to do something new. So being the company that buys millions in hardware every couple of years, I flew down to Dell in Austin and spent a couple days there. And if you ever get a chance to do that, it's pretty cool, right? It's their executive center where they show you every new thing they're building. So again, if you're a hardware geek, it's really cool. So we go down there, and they show me these new servers. They look exactly the same as the old ones, except they're more dense because Intel came out with some new chips and they're faster. And now they're talking about SSDs. But it wasn't structurally different than what we did before. It was just a little better. It was an incremental better. And it kind of left me with bad taste. And then we go over to VMware, right? Because we're a VMware shop. We put all this equipment in, we put a VMware on top, and then we run that way. So I'm sitting in a boardroom, this huge, long thing where there's a bunch of VPs in there saying, they're telling me all about all the great stuff they want to do. And I said, I want to do infrastructure as code. How do I do that? And they looked at me like I had three eyes. And what do you mean? I want to give my development team the ability to build a WordPress environment on a Tuesday afternoon and just run it. Do whatever they want to do. They don't need me. Just give it to them. And they said, well, hey, sign this NDA. We're working on this product. And they showed it to me. It's called Do You Realize? And they said, a company your size, it's probably a $2 million software purchase. I'm like, hey, my whole budget's like 5. So that was not going to happen. And when they showed it to me, it was really just a GUI interface on VMware where you could build these playbooks and kind of do it that way. I said, no, really, we're doing this thing with CloudFormation and Terraform over here. I want to do that. But I want to be on-prem so it fits in my budget because I never really considered that I could do a whole project around just moving everything. So they kind of said, you know, we don't really have anything for you. It's probably not going to work. So I still have these data centers. And in data center world, I want consistency. I love stable workloads that is exactly the same thing because I can predict that. I can buy for it. The negative in data centers is spiking traffic. I always have to maintain a good headroom because I don't know if we're going to get a big jump in traffic. So I always have to maintain that, and I'm always stressed about what is my headroom. I'm monitoring and trying to figure that all the time. You know, and I get asked every quarter, "What's our headroom? Do we have enough?" And I'm like, "I think so. We probably should buy some more servers this quarter and make sure we have enough because we don't really know." And not only that, I have to build 2 because before, right, the tornado that comes and knocks the building over, I need another one built. Just so we're actually supposed to start right now. I need a spare building, a spare data center, and every time I go and somebody comes and says, I need a server for a project, go buy me one, I go buy 2. I'm like, well, your project's going to be $20K because I need 2 $10K servers. I'm like, I don't want to fund that. I just need the $10K one. So everything I do is I have to double it to put in the other data center. So I have to maintain extra capacity. I have to maintain a second whole site with extra capacity just for in case I need it and I'm not using it. It's just sitting there idle all the time. And that's, you know, it eats away at you. Going, I have all this, why can't I use it? But I need it to be capacity in case I need it. Adding capacity is a pain too. When you get to the point where I got to add more servers, again, I got to buy 2. I got to go through a whole procurement process. I can't tie them to exact projects because it's all shared. That becomes just a lot of time consuming. And as director of engineering at the time, that's pretty much all I did. It was like my job was paperwork on maintaining these data centers. And we're a job site. So we have spikes in traffic too. We don't have Black Friday. We were opposite. We have no traffic during that week. But all of our traffic comes in January because nobody looks for a job in October because they're like, I got Thanksgiving coming up. We got holidays with the family. I took 2 weeks off at Christmas. I'm going to hang out and watch bowl games. And then the 3rd of January comes around, like, oh, crap, I got to go back to work. I'm going to find a new job this year. So we always had to build for January and February because that's when everybody starts looking for new jobs. That's when all the companies' recs open up and government opens up and everybody posts and looks. And so our traffic is double those couple months. So we build for that. So I have bought this capacity that I'm using for January and February, and it's just sitting idle the rest of the year. So again, we hate that. So we took the idea of what if we moved? What if we said we're going to just look at everything we do and migrate it all? What would that cost us? And that was a daunting project because I've got 1,200 VMs. I got to inventory that. So I'll run Landsweeper. I'll get all the IP addresses. So now I can put it in Excel and I have a list. And then I started going through each one, and we just started, looking. Okay, server 1, what is it? What's the CPU? How many? What's the percent used? What's the disks look like? What's the I/O? We went through everything and did that. It was time consuming. And it took us 2 months to get that list of everything. And what we found out from that list was we'd been building the same servers all along. We always had a 1 CPU, 1 gig machine for like DNS things, really tiny. But if you didn't, on your requisition for a VM, if you didn't put down what you wanted, you got a 1 gig or a 1 CPU machine with 4 gig. And we had, well, as you can see, hundreds of those, 166 of those running. They were all that same exact VM. And if you ask for one with 2 CPUs, you got 8 gig. Just because, we're computer geeks, that's what we build at home with our, it's always 4, 8, 16. We always do that. So 2 CPUs, most of them had 8 gig. 4 CPUs, most of them had 16 gig. There was outliers because we're a Java shop. And if you've ever run Tomcat, big Java apps, they're memory hogs. So that's why you see it kind of skewed over towards the right, where there's more machines that are big memory. But that's fine. So then we mapped those. We said, okay, so let's not buy 275 different kinds of servers and every one is this unique snowflake. Let's just say we're going to buy 5. We're going to buy 4 different classes. So T's are burstable servers in Amazon. C's are compute heavy. M's are kind of balanced. And R's are memory heavy. So we're going to fit into those categories. And then what we found was, then they mapped over to the instance type pretty well. So the server, with 32 gig and 4 CPUs ended up being an R5 medium. So wait a second, now I got 75 of those and 150 of those, and I can build a cost out of this. So we did, put it in AWS calculator, and we came out to, what's that going to cost us to run this? So then we have to do the rest of this world too, right? Because it's not just servers. Servers are actually one of the cheaper portions of running a data center. There's a lot of other stuff involved. So we got to inventory that too. So we did. So we have these servers, and you can buy a rack. And if you've ever been in a data center, rack's about the size of a fridge. You can put 42 servers in a rack. So 42U, each server is usually 1U. You can put 42 in there, but you can't, because 42 servers, as dense as they're becoming, generate so much heat that you can't dissipate the heat fast enough in the back of the server. You're going to melt all of them in there, so you can only run like 20-something to 30-something in there. Because Dell was like, hey, look, we can build these super dense things with like 16 sockets and hundreds of cores, and it's only this big. And it's like, what's the BTU out of the back of that thing? Because I have to be able to dissipate that. And I have to be able to power it up. And all the colos are like, we'll give you 5 kVA or 10 if you pay extra. And 10 kVA doesn't power very many servers. 10 kVA will power your neighborhood, but not very many dense servers like this. So we end up putting 20 servers to 30 servers per rack just because of power and cooling. So we have to buy more racks. They cost $1,000 a month a piece. Again, not a huge consequential cost in what we're doing, but it adds up. So we had to multiply everything by 2 because we have 2 data centers. And then you need software on top of those to run them. So if we add the servers in for what we were buying, we had a $500,000 in servers for 3 years. Again, it's not breaking the bank. It's fine. It is our core business. We need this, but that's what it costs. And then the racks alone cost us $350K, so $360K in just rack costs. All right. So now we need a network so they can talk. And we were one of the first places in town to go to 10 gig. We put in 10 gig cores. We put in top of rack. We put in lights out management. So when they blew up at 2 in the morning, you could actually log in from home and you didn't have to drive across town and deal with that. But again, those things get to be not too expensive themselves, but they just keep adding up. And I never realized how expensive firewalls were because I wasn't the network team. I went, hey, how much do you guys pay a year for Palo Altos? And they said, well, we have to do it's about $200,000, and then we pay a maintenance fee. And so, okay, that's expensive. And we need an internet because you need 2 internet pipes at least out of each location. Those are actually a lot cheaper now than they used to be, but it's something we need to add in there. What we found was the internet between the 2 locations was the big one, right? Because I was like, I need 10 gig fiber run across the city, but I can't just be a piece of fiber. I need 2. Because if they build a new come and go over there and they whack it with a backhoe, I can't have my network severed because of one thing. So I need you actually to run, because we were on the east side and the west side, I need you to go up over around to Ames and back. And then I need you to go down around the airport and back so that there's no place where they ever meet. The first place they ever meet is in our rack. That's expensive. I really found that out, that's really expensive. So add that $15K a month in. I got $1.5 million over 3 years in networking costs. All right, this is getting pricey. Storage. 10 years ago, we would have been in the millions. It got a lot better. It got more dense. People started using it as SSD. That generated less power, less cooling. That's great. It's a lot cheaper than it used to be, but it's still $250,000 to build 2 SANs at 2 locations, because you need all these features like replication and being able to mirror your databases and all that great stuff that you need. It still gets to be expensive. And the one that always made me really mad was I had to buy backup software. I just bought this huge expensive SAN. Now you're going to make me buy a backup software and another SAN to back up to, so that in case I write bad data to my current SAN, I can recover it. Again, all these things started adding up. I got $700K in storage. And then I layer VMware on top of it. And I'm paying them $150 a year in maintenance fees for VMware software. Again, not huge, but over 3 years, it's $450,000. So this is just the needs to run my basic infrastructure. I haven't done anything else yet. I haven't talked about databases or any of that stuff. I'm not really going to get into that because that's so specific on your business and what you're doing. I will say that we run RDS, which is the managed database service in Amazon for our main databases. We pay less per year for the whole service than we did for the software maintenance from the big red database company. Now think about that, right? That's not a software cost. That's the compute and the storage to run all of the work. We pay less. We pay like half of what we did there. And then there's people. So I have to have 2 VMware people because they go on vacation and, like to take a day off every once in a while. I can't have 1, I got to have 2. So I have 2 VMware people, I have 2 storage admins, I have 2 or more network people, I have 2 or more hardware people that just do hardware and swap drives in and out and repair things and open up service calls with your vendor and do all that fun stuff. And so we started pitching this idea. The first thing we said to everybody, because we're going around and asking these questions and people know what's up. So I'm worried about these 8 people first, because they're going to be like, hey, they're moving to the cloud and I'm the hardware guy. So I'm going to, try to stop this project. 1, 2, I'm out. So what we said right away to people was, look, I can't hire cloud people because this is 2015. If you're in, I'd love to teach you this. And I don't know it all either, so I'm going to be learning also with you. So that was a big thing that we did right away. We said, look, we're not layoffs. There are no layoffs. Everybody has a job, but we're going to do something new. And most everybody said, yeah, awesome, right? I see this coming. You're offering to teach it to me. This is a great career thing for me. We did have some of our admins that was like, hey, I'm 52. I'm going to do this for like 3 more years and I'm out. So I'm going to go and find somebody that's going to continue to do this for the next 10 because they're going to be those, right? We're an insurance town. I'm going to go do that with them and then retire. And absolutely more power to you. I would have probably done the same thing 10 years from now. I will say that one thing you really need in this is strong leadership, because you're going to get a lot of resistance from people. People are the hard part in this whole, I mean, every single technology project we do, people are the hard part. So let's add those all up. 8 good hardware network people with benefits is 150 each a year, times 3 years, times 8 people, that's $3.6 million. All right, so you add those up, we won't do the math, but it was $7.1 million for running this data center for 3 years. So that Excel spreadsheet we talked about before. All right, so I took all those and I put them in the AWS calculator. It wasn't that long. It took me probably 20 minutes to get it all in there. And it would cost $237,000 a month. Crap. That's $8.5 million over the course of 3 years. Another $1 million, or almost $2 million in storage costs. All my legacy vendors are right. Cloud's more expensive. And then we started learning about reserved instances, where you can go to Amazon and say, hey, look, I want to run that thing, that service or compute or whatever it is, and I'm going to commit to running it for 3 years. I'll pay you for that right now. But then you give me a break. And Amazon's break on most of these services is 50%. So, well, wait a second. Now, if I'm just getting, and I'm going to commit anyway, because if I build the data center, I'm committing, really committing. Right? There's no way out of this, because I've got physical hardware now. So if I commit to this, my bill's 3.8 over 3 years. Plus I've got the same storage costs, so that's another 2. The cost total to move all of my VMs, if I just straight move every one of them in the exact scenario they're at, is 5.7 over 3 years. I've got some transfer fees, so let's just round it up, call it $6 million. Wait a second. It's 7.1. That's 6. You saved $1 million. Let's go have a big party. And this is the worst case scenario, because the worst possible thing you can do if you're going to move to the cloud is just take all your VMs, turn them into AMIs, and start them up. You will do that a lot, but then you got to get better. Better. So in 2015 when we did it, there was no such thing as containers. Well, there was, but nobody was really using them. Now you would go put all your stuff in containers, deploy them onto Kubernetes, ECS, whatever you want. And then you can thin provision them again like you did in the data center. You can over provision your capacity versus what you really need, hoping that every single container doesn't need everything at the exact same time. So that's a better way of doing it. You could take one step further, which is what we do, and just go to Lambda. And Lambda is 20 million executions or 20 cents per 1,000,000 times you run a Lambda. Just run your functions there. Except it's not always that cheap. Once you start getting to the point where your Lambdas take a little longer, or you're calling other APIs, or your code is bigger than can fit into 128 meg, which it probably is, they start getting more and more expensive. So there is a point of a point of lesser return on that. And I kind of calculated it out here against an M4 large. And once you really get to the point where it takes a few hundred milliseconds to run your Lambda and you need a gig of RAM, you might be better off just running it on EC2 instances, or running it in containers and running those on EC2. So there is that. You still have to think about these things. When you get there, you kind of have a new job category, and you become a little more financial. You need somebody in technology to become financial and say, look, I'm going to go and take a look at what we're doing, and I'm going to just tweak a few. And we've been trying to incent everybody in the team to do that, to look at that thing you're doing and say, could I turn it off? Is it too big? Or did I not reserve it? If we can just do the basic things, we're going to save a lot of money when we do this. So we ended up selling the project. We did it. We converted everything chipper shredder to a data center in 2017. So that was our big good job for our team. And we kind of learned a few things in my top 5 basics on cost. Do lambdas first, do containers next, EC2 as a last resort, but don't be scared of it. It's still cheaper than doing it on your own. Use services. So that's the big one. We had a lot of arguments along the way about, well, I don't want to run MySQL on RDS. I want to run MySQL on EC2 instances because, you know what, I can do better than Amazon. And my answer to always that was, really? Can you? Can you really do it better? Are you lying to me or are you lying to yourself? Because you can't, right? We would struggle with dumb things like replication. And that's just no value in me struggling for a morning on MySQL replication. Let Amazon do that for you. Because if you price out RDS on EC2 instances, like if I ran it myself, I pay this amount. And if you ran it on the same size servers in RDS, you pay the same amount. So they're just throwing in patching, installs, and replication for you. So why not take advantage of that? Because that's just things that you have to waste your time doing. Undifferentiated heavy lifting, don't do it. Reservations are great, but shutting stuff off is even better. So if you have your QA environment, you need that till 5. And everybody goes home, and you don't need it again until 7 a.m. the next day. So we started looking at it, hey, why don't I shut these things off? So let's do the cost of that. So I took an environment with 10 C5 larges running 8 by 5. So if I just run it, start it up, run it 24 hours a day, unreserved, it's $13.50 a month. If I reserve it, it's about half, $5.18. But if I run it for 40 hours a week, because I have 144 hours in a week, so 25%, it's $311. Well, that's great. But I don't want ops being called at 2 in the morning when somebody needs to do a code release because they want to turn the environment back on. So put it in Jenkins. Just build a job. I mean, literally to turn 10 servers on is one for loop where it says everything with the tag of QA and this project, shut it off. It's one command. And it's the exact opposite command to turn them all back on. So we just put it in Jenkins job, gave it to the development team. So you do that. I don't care. Run it as much as you want. You come in on Saturday, I'm sorry, but turn it on. Again, great. As you move to the cloud, your worst day should be your first day. Because you just moved to a lot of bad things. We can't be perfect. Nobody's ever done a project and said, hey, we executed that project perfectly. Everything was perfect. That's not realistic. You're going to do a lot of things. You go, oh, man, if I do that again, I wouldn't do that. And a lot of them are cost-based. You're going to do it because it's easier, then make it better. You have time now afterwards to make it better. Find a tool to help you, because Amazon's tools that they have for that they're bad, but getting better. But it's still worth your time to go invest in a tool. They're not that expensive. And my 6th thing on my top 5 list is don't use proprietary databases, operating systems, and other licensed software. They're not cloud ready. I've had all these different software products, and they're like, here's your license key. Well, how do I scale that? Well, you log into the server and you turn it on. And but that doesn't scale at 2 in the morning when I don't want to do this. So don't try to find ways of not doing that. So what did we learn? In the end, if EC2 is not your number 1 cost, you're doing it right. So if storage is your highest cost, or S3, or even better, something like CloudFront, so your CDN is your highest cost, that's awesome. People are hard. You need to get people on board. You will lose people, and that's okay. My PR department hates when I say that, but it is okay. Because if you're not on board, it's going to be a hard project for everyone. So I see that at bigger companies now as they're starting to try these projects. Get on board. Or you need to find ways to get people on board, and if they're not willing, then move them to another department or tell them that this is the way it is. So you need strong leadership. Everybody needs to be on board. Your CTO needs to be the project owner of this, really, if you're going to do this big of a project. Hopefully, maybe even your CEO. For our case, our CEO, he announced it in the quarterly earnings call. Said, we're going to move to AWS on this day. I was like, oh, thanks, buddy. Well, I guess we're doing it now. He just told the board and the investors. So we've got a date. Automate as much as you can. We've learned all these things about how nice automation is and how these pipelines, you treat your infrastructure the same way you treat your code. Put it in Git, automate everything. When you make a change 6 months from now, it's really easy. You just check that out, do a pull request against it, deploy it. If you have a problem, 2 in the morning, you're like, what happened to this? Why is nothing working? You can then compare where you should be versus where you are. Did something change? Did somebody change? We've got audit logs, but I don't want to look through those. I want to just compare the two. Hey, these are different. Let's roll back that change and fix it. You start doing that, there's your CMDB that every big company wants you to build this whole CMDB that's never up to date. And you have it in Git. That's my CMDB. Teach people in technology basic accounting. It's not fun, but it's necessary because you're dealing with a different way of charging. You're not just having these big bills once, you're doing this every month. Review the costs with finance, but do it on your terms. So build these spreadsheets, or even better, a Confluence page that shows where you're at, where your budget is, and then you invite finance to the meeting. Because now it's your terms. And you're saying, look what I'm doing. I'm saving all this money. I'm doing this. I'm being proactive. They love that. They're just making sure you're being proactive on this. So do that. Personally, what did I learn? This was the hardest project I've ever done. And there's lots of gray hairs up here for it. But this is the best project I've ever done. I've never had more fun. And I think some of the people that are in the audience that participated in this, and I think most of them will agree that this was the most fun project I've ever had the opportunity to do. So if you get the opportunity, embrace it. It's fun. The projects that are fun are the ones we learn stuff. Because if we're not learning anything, why do we do this? Why do we put up with all this stress if we're not learning cool new things? So quick summary. 8x5 is great. Do that. Save even more money than reserving. Give spot instances a try. So you can go and buy reserved capacity that nobody else uses. You can bid on that. Say, I'll give you 10 cents an hour for that server. If I got to work that I just need done and I don't care, it takes 2 hours, 4 hours, I just need this batch stuff done, that's a great way to do it. Now I can bid and say, let me buy the cheapest server I can possibly buy because I don't care what it is. Give away the ability to start up environments. Don't make that an ops thing. Try to munge those two worlds really into one, and don't make that ops thing. Make that a development thing. Spend a few hours just reviewing these every month. So I do that. I've learned more about finance during this project than I ever thought I would know. I could probably be an accountant in my next job. I don't want to do that, but probably could. So that's an interesting skill that is becoming a thing in technology, is that accounting and financial technology is becoming a career. You might need somebody to oversee all your RIs as they get big. I've got hundreds. I've probably got 700 RIs. That's 20% of my job, is managing that. Not hard. Just I build calendar invites for myself, and I know I got to do these things, and I've got spreadsheets, and it's fine. Look at your vendor support. So if you're running MySQL, you might have a MySQL contract when you do it on-prem, because you need to be able to call somebody at 2 in the morning when things blow up. You're not going to call Oracle when things blow up if you're doing it in AWS. You're going to call AWS. So drop those contracts. Think about find out, from your AWS, or Azure or anybody else, what is it you're going to give me? You might not need these other legacy vendors. That's really our summary of what we did. I saw there was a cloud infrastructure thing on the open spaces, and I think we're going to start that. It's 3 o'clock now, so we're going to start open spaces early, and so I'll be down there. We're going to do a little bit of a humble brag. This is the day we launched. The top graph is our response time. It didn't get that much better because the scale of that's not that great. So what we found was response time's better a little bit. The cool one is the bottom one. That's the standard deviation of response time. So a customer viewing your website, if they get a consistent experience, it doesn't matter if that consistent experience is a little slow, they're used to it. If they get a consistent experience that's really fast one time and just horrible the next time, or it's bouncing all over in their session, that's a performance issue. They'd rather have a nice, stable performance. And what we saw was, turns out we were having storage problems for years and we didn't know it. Our metrics never showed it. That's what we thought the base. We just thought that's what it was. Moved, and that all got better. So there we are. Let's meet up at Open Spices. Thank you everybody for attending. Is there anybody that organizers? Great job. So thank you for this.